After being betrayed by his classmates for being the weakest, Mimori Touka is left to survive a deadly dungeon full of monsters in a strange new world. Let us begin. Mimori Touka has always been scared and timid his whole life. As a child, his father used to beat him up while his mother would do absolutely nothing to help. And as a result, he has grown up to be someone completely unnoticed. Touka is sitting in a bus full of his classmates and has to witness the class bully, Oyamada, teasing the class president, Ayaka. Oyamada makes fun of Ayaka's romance novels and dangles it over her head while everyone just minds their business in fear of attracting the bully's attention. Touka initially doesn't feel obligated to help out as he knows he is not strong enough to take on Oyamada, but upon remembering his tough childhood, he takes the initiative and tells Oyamada to back down. The bully is shocked at Touka's audacity and starts to mock him as well. But then, Kirihara, the most popular and cool-headed guy in the entire class, tells Oyamada to stop his antics. His words seem to hold weight, and the other students clearly respect him because Oyamada sits down, but he still doesn't stop there. He then starts to annoy Yasu, the quiet kid who is also always bullied, and only stops when the teacher threatens to throw him off the bus. As Touka thinks of how it was unlike him to stand up for somebody else, he also reveals how much he despises most of his classmates. Most of them do not care about what happens to the less popular kids, and even the class teacher accompanying them on the bus doesn't care about what the students are doing, and really, all he wants to do is enjoy his school life in peace. But this would not be an entertaining anime if that happened, and therefore, a mysterious light appears in the bus, and Touka with the entire class are all teleported somewhere else. The students are confused, with some of them thinking they are in a dream, while others say it must be April Fools. But a mysterious woman appears and reminds them they are in July while introducing herself as the goddess Vicious. While standing in the middle of a medieval-looking hallway with spears, knights, and candles, the goddess welcomes all of the students and informs them that she summoned them to her world for a grand purpose. She explains that the demon emperor once caused great devastation to the kingdom 200 years ago, but it was eventually defeated. Now the demon emperor has returned once more, and she needs the strength of the students to help bring him down. Because the students have never heard of isekai, they are still confused and scared while once again trying to convince themselves that they are either in a dream or being pranked. The teacher then interrupts their side conversations and advises that they listen to the goddess's instructions. But it seems the teacher himself is not a good listener, as he is caught in 4K staring at the goddess's melons. As Touka is analyzing their surroundings, he starts to think that they are in the same room as solo leveling, and his fear only increases once Kirihara asks the goddess what would be the consequences if the students refuse to help her out, to which she gives a pretty devious response. She tells them they will die in the room as she cannot send them back home, and the only way for her to gain the ability to send everyone home is by them either obtaining the heart of the demon emperor or absorbing the element from the demon emperor's necklace as he dies. Oyamada, the bully, has had enough of this foolishness and tells the goddess that he couldn't care less about the demon emperor or the kingdom, and seeing his reaction, the goddess has no choice but to kneel before the students and beg for their help. This prompts Ayaka to step forward as well and asks how exactly are mere humans meant to help defeat a demon. But it seems like the goddess came prepared, and she demonstrates the reality of the situation by first killing a giant demonic wolf right in front of the students after it devours what seemed to be a human prisoner. The students had mixed reactions to what they saw, with some of them screaming in fear and others being too stiff to even move. But one thing for sure, it confirmed that they are indeed in another world where demon emperors, goddesses, and magic exist. The students are gathered in front of an orb, and one by one they place their hand towards it, and the orb lights up. Each student is given a rank, with the highest being an S rank. Oyamada, the bully, ends up being an A rank, and he acts very arrogantly. But that only lasted for a short amount of time, as Kirihara and Ayaka both turn out to be S ranks. This greatly impresses the goddess, as it is rare to have multiple S ranks in one summoning. But next up is Touka, and when our MC steps up, he realizes that his light is not as bright as the other ones, and this causes the goddess to completely ignore him. Even in this world, our boy is destined to be a nobody, a complete background character. Touka then watches on as Yasu, the guy who was bullied all the time, turns out to have a unique dark energy, which the goddess claims to be the strongest out of everybody, and this makes the once shy boy starts to smile creepily as he thinks his time to shine has finally arrived. The goddess then instructs everyone to check their status, and Touka observes how even his stats are below average, as it reveals his rank to be E. After all the students are ranked, Oyamada tells the teacher he is no longer in control as he is only a D rank, while most of the students are B and above. With that, the goddess initiates a critical ritual and tells Touka to step forward and informs him that he is the lowest rank amongst the entire group and therefore will be thrown in a dungeon with deadly monsters to prove his worth. But if he survives and makes it out alive, he will be free to do whatever he wants. Touka is shocked to basically get a death sentence because of his rank and tries to convince the goddess to not dispose of him as he has a skill called Abnormal State Endowment. But the goddess does not care because all abnormal state spells and skills have no value and are not very powerful. As the goddess is calling our MC a failure, the rest of the class also mocks him and look forward to him dying. Even Yasu, the kid he used to help out after being bullied, turns on him and calls him a lowly E rank that should hurry up and die. Their harsh words make Touka very upset and only Ayaka tries to stand up for him. She pleads with the goddess to not dispose of Touka as he is their fellow classmate. But the goddess does not care and responds by landing a heavy blow on Ayaka, knocking her out. This angers Touka, causing him to launch an attack at the goddess. She easily deflects it while revealing she has a permanent protective veil around her that blocks all incoming attacks. Collectively, the students and the goddess continue to mock our MC as tears starts to build in his eyes. As this happens, however, he visits his childhood self and tells him it's time to show them who he truly is. And with that, Touka gives the students and the goddess the middle finger as he vows to come back for them. Our MC then wakes up deep in the dungeon where he immediately comes across human skulls that had been split in half. And as he wonders what could have done such damage, he is able to dodge the monster's attack at the last second. Without even looking back, he runs while the monster gives chase, and with each step it takes, the monster shakes the ground as well as oozing deadly acid from the holes in its body. Touka eventually trips and starts to prepare for his death. In that moment, however, he remembers how everyone made fun of him, how they mocked him, and how he promised to come back to end them. This forces his body to move on its own as he uses his paralyzed skill on the monster. This gives him an opportunity to escape. As he runs away, however, he comes across another bird-like monster that quickly corners him. The situation forces Touka to once again use Paralyze on the bird monster, followed by Poison. The problem is, our MC has run out of mana and finds himself pinned between the now arriving Tor and the bird monster. He is once again scared that he may not make it out alive, but his childhood voice urges him on. It reminds him of the anger he felt when he was being beaten by his father, and as he raises his hand against the giant monster, he vows to come back to kill everyone who did him wrong. But before we end the episode, we see a beautiful elf coming out of the water, seemingly waiting to meet a certain someone. Wink, wink. Touka tries to use Paralyze on the attacking Minotaur, but it fails as the world does not allow the use of the same skill on the same target repeatedly, causing our MC to resort to using his sleep skill at the last second. After also poisoning the Minotaur, multiple bird monsters start to surround him, and he starts spamming his Paralyze skill on each of them in an attempt to survive this nightmare. It was not over, however, as numerous Minotaur also pop out to try to take him out. But before Touka is killed, his mana is suddenly replenished due to leveling up, and he starts spamming his Paralyze skill on the Minotaur like there is no tomorrow. Touka realizes his level up is due to the first poisoned bird monster dying, and at the same time, his Paralyze skill has also leveled up due to him using it so much. But it was not only the strength of the skill that increased. Touka has now gained the ability to target multiple enemies at a time with Paralyze, and takes the opportunity to poison them as well, causing his poison skill to also level up. As the monsters start to die from the poison, our MC simply relaxes while receiving experience and leveling up multiple times, and at this point, he has reached level 395. He puts some of the monsters to sleep in order to level up that skill as well, but that does not stop the poison from killing them, and now he has reached level 501. To his surprise, however, the monsters suddenly become scared and start to run away from him, and Touka uses the break to loot a nearby dead body of its clothes. Because leveling up only replenishes his mana and not his tummy, our MC looks for food and has to resort to eating the eye of a Minotaur. After one bite, however, he throws it away as it also tasted like acid, but before he gives up, he feeds some mana to his pouch, and because the pouch is not one to owe people favors, it creates beef jerky and Coca-Cola for our MC, who promptly devours it. Days and nights have gone by, and we are shown Touka sitting on top of a poisoned dragon-like monster like a king, while looking down on multiple smaller monsters who also have been paralyzed and poisoned. As the monsters succumb to the poison, our MC is leveling up, and at this point, his level has reached 665. He thinks to himself, himself that he feels nothing even though he is killing the monster in an inhumane manner, but he has learned that is how the world works. The strong take advantage of and kill the weak, and he has vowed to become the strongest in order to hunt everyone who think they are strong. As the massive dragon finally dies, our MC's level makes a massive jump to 957 with all his basic stats almost reaching 3000. He kills an eye monster before making his way in a tunnel where he comes across a couple who has died long ago. Touka then checks their bag and finds it full of gems. Because he might have use for the gems in the future, he decides to take them with him, but makes sure to apologize and thank the couple before leaving. He goes through multiple rooms in the tunnel where he finds useful items, but comes across a room that is taking more of his mana than the others. Within the room, he finds the remains of the last dark hero named Anglin Bathard. Similar to how Yasu is the new dark hero and the strongest amongst the group, Bathard was also the strongest in his group, but was forced in the dungeon by the goddess Vicious after she used him to kill the demon emperor. He was also filled with hatred, but was unable to escape the dungeon, and so he entrusted the person who finds him to use the items in his bag to finish what he could not. Touka finds a book and a scroll within the bag that can teach him forbidden dark magic, but as he scrolls through the book, he comes across a note surrounded by blood warning him of something called the Soul Eater. The note claims that the Soul Eater is so dangerous that it was the cause of the death of everyone else in Bathard's party, and this causes Touka to explore the dungeon more carefully, as there is something that can actually kill him down there. But our MC has bad luck and comes across the Soul Eater while making his way out of the dungeon. He tries to use Paralyze on it, but the Soul Eater shoots a hole through his hand before he can even finish casting the spell. As Touka thinks of a way to defeat the Soul Eater, who has now detached itself from the wall, we are taken outside, where we come across a hooded blonde woman with massive melons who is seemingly being chased by some unknown assailants. Back in the dungeon, monsters are arising from the Soul Eater's vomit, but it was only a distraction as the massive scary head pops through the wall and uses its screaming ability. The ability is not effective on Touka, and that is when he realizes that the Soul Eater is toying with him as it opens its massive, scary-looking golden eyes and starts to laugh at him. Tears start to stream from our MC's eyes as he does not want to hurt the Soul Eater's minions because they look too human. He screams for somebody, anybody, to help him. The Soul Eater is enjoying the show, laughing at our MC's despair, but little does it know that it was all a trick by Touka, who suddenly uses Paralyze on the monster. He explains that he needed a way to cast the spell without being interrupted, and because the Soul Eater was too busy laughing at his pain, it gave him the opportunity to raise his hand and cast Paralyze. The skill has leveled up to level 3 after being used on such a strong monster, and as Touka poisons all of the monsters around him, including the Soul Eater, he explains the monster lost to him because it got too cocky. It thought that a lowly human could not outsmart it, but Touka was used to being looked down on by now, and will use that, as well as every trick he knows to his advantage in order to see his revenge through. As his poison skill also reaches level 3, he puts all of the monsters to sleep, increasing that skill's level to 3 as well. And when the Soul Eater finally dies, all of the souls it has eaten are released, and each of them thank Touka, as well as giving him their blessings because they have watched everything he has been through since being thrown in the dungeon. Even Anglin Bathard's soul appears to tell Touka to give the evil goddess hell, but our MC had already planned on doing that as he finally makes his way out of the dungeon. We are given a look at what Touka's classmates have been up to while he fought for his life in the dungeon. They are all in new adventurer's garb as they chase and kill the surrounding monsters in the forest to gain levels and become stronger. And one member of the class, Kobato, is too afraid to fight and has to be given a pep talk by another girl, Asagi, who threatens to kick her out of the group if she falls behind in levels. Asagi then reveals that the class will fall apart soon because everyone started chasing their own selfish goals instead of being united. When this happens, she wants Kobato to join her group and reminds the poor girl that there is a high likelihood that she will die if she is alone, as her rank is only D. As Asagi continues to try to persuade Kobato, she calls over the other girls of the group to bring a small chained monster for Kobato to kill, as she has not killed any monsters yet. Kobato hesitates due to not wanting to take an innocent life, so Asagi once again resorts to threaten the poor girl, reminding her of what happened to our MC, leaving Kobato no choice but to slay the small monster. Kobato is welcomed to Asagi's group after completing the ritual, but tears flow from the girl's eyes as she thinks back to when Touka cared for a cat that had been hit by a car, and she apologizes for being too weak to stand up for herself. Around this time, Ayaka has finally woken up from being knocked out by the goddess and confronts her in the throne room. The goddess fakes her tears as she explains to Ayaka that she had no choice in sending Touka in the dungeon dungeons, as it is the rules of the kingdom. It does not stop there, however, and the goddess further discloses that a number of other students had been disqualified and discarded while Ayaka slept, due to not being able or willing to slay one of the small monsters. Her words angers Ayaka, but nonetheless, the class president proposes to the goddess that she will work hard enough to make up for the lack of ability of her lower-ranked classmates to avoid them being thrown to the wolves. To my surprise, the goddess agrees to the proposal and shakes Ayaka's hands while threatening to give her another punch to her gut if she fails. Deeper in the forest, we once again come across the big melon-hooded woman who is running from her pursuers, who appear to be a group made up of 4 people. No matter how fast or how far she runs, they are continually able to track her down, and notes that even though the woman has the ability to conceal herself, their group, the White Walkers, are much too experienced to lose her tracks. Touka has made it out of the dungeon at around this time and decides to test his newly leveled up abilities on the surrounding monsters. It doesn't take him too long to come across the infamous slimes and witnesses the bigger ones bullying the little one. He decides to paralyze and poison all the slimes initially, but lets the bigger ones go, leaving only the small one cowering in fear of him. To the slime's surprise, though, the towering man praises it for standing up to his bigger counterparts and apologizes for not getting there sooner. With that, Touka releases the slime's paralysis and starts to take his leave while telling the slime to live strong. What surprised Touka even more was the excited little slime that began following him as he walked, because the little creature had already taken a liking to him. Now comfortably nestled in his hood, Touka tells the slime to keep an eye on their back to make sure no one sneaks up on them, and the slime chirps an eager "Yes, sir" as Touka flips through Barthard's book, where he finds instructions on how to help the creature level up. Later, Touka has a serious conversation with the slime, explaining his quest for vengeance against those who betrayed him. He then gives the slime one last chance to back out, but when it cutely insists on staying, Touka names it Pigimaru. The slime, thrilled by its new name, excitedly changes color in response. The White Walkers finally have the hooded woman in their sights as they chase her, but instead of continuing to run, the woman decides to fight back and pulls out her sword while starting her magical chant. Her aura changes to various colors as she chants, and a piece of special armor appears on her body with every new stance. Before they get to her, however, the White Walkers come across Touka, who is acting like a scared, lost little boy. The leader of the White Walkers tells his men to hurry up and kill the boy so they can continue their pursuit of the woman, but his men are too busy talking about how much fun they will have with her body once they capture her. Touka acts like he is trying to escape while they are busy with their conversation, but quickly is attacked by one of the members, to which he responds by immediately paralyzing the bastard. As Touka inwardly thanks God that his abilities also work on humans, he tells the remaining members of the White Walkers that they are all weaker than the monsters he has faced so far, and he will kill them now that he knows they are just scums who capture and violate women. After poisoning and incapacitating the White Walkers, Touka and Pigimaru senses another presence nearby, and the hooded woman also becomes worried as she can no longer sense her pursuers, and wonders if there is something or someone more deadly in the area that she should be worried about. As she contemplates if she should flee or not, Touka appears behind her and uses Paralyze. He explains that he did not poison her due to not sensing any malicious intent behind her actions, and asks the woman to tell him everything she knows about the area as he is not familiar with it. Instead of immediately giving the man what he wants, the woman asks Touka if he came across 4 other men on his way to her, to which our MC reveals that he killed them, shocking her. Touka then reminds the woman that he might do the same to her if she does not give him the information he is looking for, causing her to immediately tell the dangerous stranger everything she knows of the forest they are in. After she does so, Touka asks if she can read one of the ancient scripts from Bathard's scroll. She says that she cannot, but reveals that she knows someone who might be able to read it. The woman discloses that the person can be found in a dangerous place called the Golden Demon Zone, and Touka thanks her before starting to take his leave. Before he does so, however, he tells the big melon woman that his spell on her will deactivate after a short while, and she will be able to move. The woman thanks him for not killing her, and Touka notices that she somehow reminds him of his aunt, who always looked out for him. Pigimaru jumps on his back as he starts to leave, and he has to explain to the slime that no, he does not kill everyone. He only kills scums and people who betray him. Touka arrives in the city of Mills and is only allowed in after claiming he is a mercenary who has come to fight in the dungeons. He rents a room and starts wandering the nightlife of Mills before finally having a good meal in what seemed to be ages. As he eats, he decides to gather some intel by eavesdropping on the conversation of some middle-aged guys who have had a bit too much to drink. They start to compare the strength of each faction in the different regions, but they are all in agreement that the Black Dragon Knights are the strongest, as they were able to to burn down the holy kingdom of Nea in one night. After also hearing that there is a man known as the strongest human in the Black Dragon Knights, Touka takes his leave and decides to take part of a dungeon raid in order to become stronger. The person who oversees the dungeon, Creed Harkley, tells the group before him that all of the loot they find in the dungeon is theirs, but he is willing to pay 300 gold to anyone who finds the rare treasure known as the Cup of the Dragon's Eye. As the group lines up to register, Touka sees a man loudly flirting with a hooded woman who he believes to be the former leader of the knights. After being rejected, the loud man, Monk Dorogeti, reminds everyone that the former knight leader was a beautiful elf known as Saras Ashrain, and a price was put on her head after being kicked out of her group. To prove that the person standing before them is the disgraced knight, Mon Dorogeti removes the woman's hood, only to find out he was wrong, as the woman's ears are not elven, but human. As Touka realizes that the woman is the one he met in the forest previously, she introduces herself as Mist Barkus, and the embarrassed Monk Dorogeti is forced to run away after making such a commotion. Touka comes across the woman later while on his way to buy some items to prepare for the raid. She tells him she was not expecting to see him again so soon, but Touka warns her to watch out for Monk Dorogeti, as men like him will be out for revenge after being embarrassed in front of everybody. The woman tells him she can handle the likes of Monk Dorogeti, as she has come across men like him numerous times before, and they introduce themselves to one another with a handshake. They go weapons shopping together for the upcoming raid, and Mist Barkus helps Touka by choosing the weapons that suit him best, as well as negotiating prices on his behalf. After thanking and paying Mist Barkus for her help, Touka has to catch her as she starts to collapse, and she apologizes while revealing she has not been able to sleep for the last few days due to being hunted by the White Walkers. Not wanting to be a nuisance to Touka, Mist Barkus takes her leave, and he decides to head to the dungeon. Our MC comes across a group of scaredy cats who are running away from a baby minotaur, and he is easily able to take the monster out. Touka thinks of how easy this dungeon is compared to the one he was thrown in, and comes across Monk Dorogeti, who is attempting to convince two other adventurers to help him capture and kill Mist Barkus. As they talk about how they will violate her body before brutally taking her apart, the two men notices Touka walking towards them, and they decide to take the young man's head as they know he overheard their conversation. With Touka raising his hand, Monk Dorogeti believes the young man is about to beg for his life, only for him and his entire group to find themselves paralyzed. As our MC poisons Monk Dorogeti and his two accomplices, he tells them of how good it feels to take out scumbags like them, and hears their screams as they are being eaten by monsters while he leaves them behind. Touka then comes across a group known as the Saber-Toothed Tigers, who informs him to watch out as they have come across numerous dead monsters with no battle wounds on them. Although our MC knows he is the one who killed the monsters with poison, he acts clueless, and Saber-Toothed Tigers leader Lily Adamantine decides to pull her group from the raid and offers Touka the opportunity to leave with them. Touka declines her offer, however, and thinks to himself that the less people in the dungeon the better, as he does not want anyone knowing of his abilities yet. Our MC eventually finds the room that houses the rare Cup of the Dragon's Eye, and because he knows its guardian will attack as soon as he touches the treasure, he decides to paralyze and poison the monster before it even had a chance to move. As the poor monster dies, Touka picks up the cup and almost kills Mist Barkus, who suddenly appeared in the room. She tells him she thought she would be the first to arrive as everyone else has started to leave, but is not surprised to see him get there before her. To her disbelief, however, the young man places the cup in her hand while telling her he has no need for it. But Mist Barkus yells that she has to give him something in return, as she cannot simply accept such a rare and expensive treasure. Touka tells her it's okay, as he is just a naive little boy who gives pretty things to pretty girls. And as he opens a secret entrance, he reveals that his true motive is to kill the monster in the hidden room, as he has use for some parts of its body. Still, the woman is unwilling to take the treasure for free, and begs Touka to at least let her help him, as she is good with the sword. Touka tells her he is willing to accept her on the conditions that she does not ask him any personal questions, as well as not being responsible for what happens to her in the dungeon. After accepting his conditions and telling Touka she will protect him with her life, Miss Barkus displays her skills by single-handedly taking out a giant plant-like monster, and Touka thinks she is now ready to be introduced to Piggy Maru, who she finds absolutely adorable. After petting the little slime, Miss Barkus is asked by Touka to finally get some rest. She hesitates initially by saying she won't hold him back, but our MC reminds her that she has pledged her life to him, and again asks the woman to get some rest. Mist Barkus gives in and is put to sleep by Touka. As she sleeps, however, her body transforms to reveal that she is actually the former knight leader, Saras Ashrain, and our MC barely reacts, as he had already suspected as much. Outside the dungeon, the Black Dragon Knights are investigating the death of the White Walkers, who they believe were killed at the hands of Saras Ashrain, and the one known as the strongest human in the world, Civet Garland, says he cannot wait to test her abilities for himself. Back in the dungeon, Mist Barkus and Touka come face to face with the Skeleton King, and she is forced to transform into her knight-like state to unleash her full power. To her surprise, however, Touka calmly paralyzes and poisons the monster, leaving her blushing with embarrassment. After collecting the ultra-rare item dropped by the Skeleton King, Piggymaru points to the egg the monster was guarding and suggests to Touka that they should take it with them. In another part of the dungeon, we find Oyamata and Kihihara effortlessly dispatching the Skeleton Knight monsters, but their overzealous attacks force Ayaka to step in and shield their classmates from the collateral damage. As Kihihara gloats about leveling up to level 24, we find Touka and Mist Barkus alone in the room.
Yeah, boy.
Where he has just asked if she would like to be hired as his escort. He reminds her that he must meet the only person capable of deciphering Barthard's scroll, the Forbidden Witch, who resides in the Golden Demon Zone. As a skilled fighter familiar with the dangerous path to the zone, she is the ideal partner for the journey. Mist Barkus is disappointed because she was hoping Touka was talking about the other kind of escort.
What do you mean by that?
But agrees to be with him as the Golden Demon Zone is a shortcut to her destination of the Jonato Principality. With their bond deepening, Mist Barkus decides to reveal her true identity to Touka as Saras Ashrain. In turn, our MC follows suit, sharing his real name with her for the first time. After thinking about Touka as she bathes that night, the two meet for breakfast, where Saras reveals that the forbidden spells were actually made forbidden by the goddess Vicious, and Touka quickly figures out it must be because the spells are strong enough to break through the goddess's impenetrable shield. After Saras finds herself blushing at the sight of Touka lost in thought, the two agree to rendezvous later in front of the inn, but the problem arises when Saras fails to show up at the appointed time. As Touka thinks of how this is unlike his big meloned elf, we find Ayaka asking the goddess Vicious about Sakura, who lost one of her hands during the earlier dungeon raid. Vicious coldly tells the class president that only those with ranks of A or higher are worthy of her healing, meaning Sakura, ranked B, doesn't qualify.
What?
As if that weren't enough, the goddess delivers another blow, revealing that by the king's order, any students deemed weak and showing no signs of improvement are to be eliminated.
Oh, what are you talking about, man?
Determined to protect her classmates from being killed, Ayaka takes them under her wing, vowing to bear full responsibility for their survival. As she departs, though, the goddess Vicious spits curses at her in frustration. Meanwhile, Touka, searching for Saras, overhears that her true identity has been exposed. Now Saras is on the run, fleeing through the forest with the Black Knights in pursuit. True enough, Saras is in the midst of a fierce fight with the Black Dragon Knights, managing to take down 3 of them single-handedly. She is caught off guard, however, and is knocked down by one of the top knights second in command. Instead of killing her, the knight makes the mistake of wanting to have fun with her body, only for him to find his body paralyzed as Touka approaches. Saras asks Touka what he is doing there as he poisons the knight, and Touka responds, he is here to get her back. Saras tries to explain that he will also be pursued by the Black Knights if he stays with her, but Touka doesn't care, and tells the big meloned elf she is the one that he wants. Before Saras even has a chance to process what she has just heard, the young man commands her to undress in front of him right here and now. Touka clarifies she needs to change her outfit so the people in town don't recognize her, but Saras blushes and is again disappointed while thinking she wouldn't have minded doing it for other reasons. Their conversation is cut short when Civet Garland makes his entrance by impaling the defeated knight on the freaking head. Even Touka is shaken up, as he knows he is not yet strong enough to take on this monster whose strength towers over even the Soul Eater. Civet then reveals that the Emperor himself commanded him and his knights to pursue and execute Saras. The Emperor's twisted logic was clear. If he couldn't have Saras and her body, he would see to it that no one else could. But one of the 5 dragon knights, Schweitz, tells Seras that they will allow her to live under the condition that she is able to defeat humanity's strongest, Civet Garland, in battle. Knowing he will likely lose his big meloned elf in the battle, Touka makes a gamble by approaching Civet Garland. He tells humanity's strongest that he knows he must be bored and is looking for someone who can actually challenge him in strength. The boy's words interest the white-haired killer. Noticing that Civet can detect lies, Touka chooses to be truthful and tells him that not only will he become strong enough to challenge Civet, he also will be the one to kill him. All Civet needs to do is to let them go this time, and the next time they meet, they will battle to the death. Having finally found someone willing to challenge his strength, Civet Garland decides to spare Touka, allowing him to go free so they can face off once Touka has grown stronger. It was a fatal mistake, however, as Civet Garland and his knights suddenly find themselves paralyzed as soon as they turn their backs to the young boy. The knights scream in pain and confusion as their bodies are being invaded by Touka's deadly poison, causing blood to pour from their eyes and mouth. Barely able to speak, Civet screams at Touka for his betrayal, but to make matters worse for the knights, the young boy boosts the range of his abilities by merging with his slime, and this allows him to easily eliminate the knights' reinforcements. As the knights die one by one, Touka is leveling up and has gained the abilities Freeze, Dark, and Berserk, which he tests on each of the top knights. Civet Garland, who is the last to cling on to life, cannot believe his eyes. He cannot believe that this is the way he will be defeated, but still, a lost is a lost, and the white-haired killer recognizes the young boy as humanity's strongest as he draws his last breath. I appreciate you for watching. Please leave a like if you're enjoying the story so far, and I will see you next time for part 3.